Good evening, and welcome to tonight's live telephone town hall with Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro, your representative for the 3rd District of Connecticut. My name is Tim Andrews, and I'll be moderating this conversation tonight, and in a few moments, we'll be joined by the Congresswoman, but before we begin, I'd like to explain what will happen in the next hour. The purpose of this call is to hear from you and discuss the House Republicans' proposed cuts to education programs. We will be joined by Leslie Blatteau from the New Haven Federation of Teachers, as well as Jared Bass, Senior Vice President for Education at the Center for American Progress. We'll also be asking poll questions this evening so that we can hear from you in our audience and get your opinions. And if you're on the phone, you can simply vote by pressing the corresponding number on your keypad. If you're online, you can vote by selecting your response right below the streaming player. And again, this is an interactive telephone town hall, so if at any point in tonight's call you would like to ask Congresswoman DeLauro a question, simply press *3 on your telephone keypad. Again, press *3. You will continue to hear the town hall until one of the Congresswoman's staff members can assist you. Now, if you're streaming the event on our website, and you'd like to ask a question, simply type your name and question right below the streaming player. We'll get to as many questions as we can throughout this event. Also, if you would like to receive our newsletter and receive updates from your 3rd Congressional District office, simply press *6 at any time. Now, if you don't have a chance to ask your specific question or hear the answer to your specific question during tonight's call, please note that you will be able to leave a voicemail for the Congresswoman and her staff at the end of the call simply by remaining on the line. And with that, I'd like to welcome Congresswoman DeLauro. Congresswoman?
Thank you. Thanks so much, Tim, and good evening to everyone. This is Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro, and I do represent Connecticut's 3rd Congressional District. And I want to say a thank you to all who have joined tonight for a live Tele-Town Hall meeting. I'm looking forward to engaging with all of you in a critical discussion about the importance of public education. And I want to welcome our guest, Leslie Blatteau, from the New Haven Federation of Teachers, and the Senior Vice President for Education at the Center for American Progress, Jared Bass, to benefit from their knowledge. In my role as a lead a Democrat on the House Appropriations Committee, I've become immersed in the work of providing funding for crucial programs that Americans depend on every day. We all know how education can open doors and opportunities to jobs, to higher wages, to a better life. It was Horace Mann, known as the father of American education, who once called education, and I quote, the great equalizer. But that's only true if people have access to that opportunity, which is why I'm disappointed in some of my colleagues who want to pass really devastating cuts to education in the Labor, Health, Human Services, and Education funding bill. The proposed cuts would bring our economy back to funding levels that we have not seen since 2008. What we are seeing in Washington is that House Republicans are intent on eliminating public education, which in my view undermines America as a land of opportunity. It would slash access to education for anyone but the richest among us. Let me make a point here. Right? Education is so important to me. I'm the daughter of an immigrant family. They could only dare dream that their daughter would serve in the United States House of Representatives. As so many parents did, mine did, is to say, get an education, and you can, so that you can have an opportunity to succeed. So what some of my colleagues, Republican colleagues, are doing is decimating public education. They would eliminate the college work-study program, other financial aid programs for post-secondary studies, and many more education programs are on the chopping block. This year, 161 House Republicans voted to eliminate all K through 12 funding at the Department of Education, and that was to begin this December. That was just a beginning, and 161 House Republicans voted for that. I'm happy to say that it did not pass, but nevertheless 161 folks voted for it. House Republicans are aiming to cut $22.5 billion, a 28% cut from the Department of Education's budget. What does this do? These are not just numbers. It guts critical programs that millions of students, hardworking families depend on, while undermining those who seek the American dream. Let me just be specific in a couple of instances. Title I, which is the foundational piece of public education in our country. It's Title I grants to local education agencies. They would deal with an 80% cut, $15 million. What will that do? During this nationwide teacher shortage, this plan would force over 220,000 teachers out of classrooms who serve low-income students nationwide, including 1,900 teachers in Connecticut. Eliminate access to early childhood education for 300 children in Connecticut through cuts to Head Start. The Head Start program has been really an American success story, one of the most effective early child development programs ever developed. We should be investing in programs like Head Start, not tearing them down. Eliminating the federal work-study program for 10,000 students and the supplemental educational opportunity grants for 22,000 students across our state. They would also block President Biden's student debt relief plan, preventing a needed emergency student loan relief for more than 40 million Americans, and that translates into about 321,000 Connecticut residents who applied for and who were deemed eligible for this kind of relief. But then, as you might remember, that the Biden administration through the Supreme Court was blocked from moving forward on this debt relief. So the cuts are reckless, and they block the creation of new and more affordable student loan repayment plans in the future. So I just want to say that I'm ready to work on a bipartisan basis to make sure our government stays open. I'm ready to fight to prevent these cuts, but we need voices of local communities even more now than ever, which is why this call is so important tonight. Let me stop there. I want to introduce our guests so that we can start taking questions. Leslie Blatteau has been working with the New Haven Public Schools for over 20 years, high school social studies teacher, and the New Haven Federation of Teachers Local 933 members since 2007. In addition to teaching, she serves as senior class advisor, school planning and management team, the chair of that at Metropolitan. She is an activist and organizer on issues related to our classrooms and our city. Jared Bass is joining tonight. As I said at the outset, Jared is the Senior Vice President for Education at the Center for American Progress. He served for a number of years as a professional staff of the House Appropriations Committee. And Jared and I have worked closely together, and he's worked very closely with my. Fortunate to have both Leslie and Jared with us tonight. I want to say thank you to them for joining. And if I can ask Jared, Leslie and Jared, just to say a few words, and then we'll get to questions as quickly as possible. Leslie?
Yes. Thank you, Congresswoman. Good evening, everyone. This is Leslie Blatteau here with the New Haven Federation of Teachers, and we certainly share Congresswoman DeLauro's horror at the recent Republican proposal to eliminate K-12 funding at the Department of Ed. As educators, we are working to meet our students' needs, to meet academic, social, and emotional needs. And we really rely on federal support to ensure that we can continue to do this work. And I want to restate that federal dollars have real impact in New Haven and throughout the state of Connecticut. So again, to echo what the Congresswoman said, if their extreme proposal passes, Head Start services are cut for 300 children in Connecticut. Our students in New Haven, many of them start off at that very important program. In addition, 1,900 Connecticut teachers could be removed at Title I schools, again, where our most vulnerable communities are going to school. And also academic services for 49,500 English language learners would be eliminated, so many of whom call New Haven our sanctuary city home. So this is unacceptable. It's immoral. We are the richest country in the history of the world. We are working to heal after years of loss and trauma, and we want to come together with real solutions. And I'm proud to be a leader in a union where we do have a vision to protect the promise of public education for children throughout the country. We want to address literacy, learning loss, and loneliness, and we're going to do this by making sure our students have high-quality instruction to become joyful and confident readers, that they have access to hands-on experiential learning opportunities. We in New Haven build bridges between our schools and our community. We work collaboratively to prioritize our students' mental health and well-being, and we keep advocating for what our schools need so they can be safe, welcoming, and well-maintained for students and educators. And we can only do this work with the support of the federal government. And that's why we're so grateful to Congresswoman DeLauro. You understand that solutions are how we're going to address these issues that are facing our community. Austerity is never the answer. Really robust investment in public services, in public education is the answer. And I'm really looking forward to the continued conversation this evening.
Thank you. And Jared, a few words, and then we'll get started with our questions.
Sure. Thank you, Congresswoman. As you stated, America's education system is crucial to the success of our nation. Through it, we plant the seeds of leaders and problem solvers. We train doctors and medical researchers, nurses, teachers, construction workers, and citizens to solve the challenges of today and tomorrow. But if we stop planting those seeds, if we stop watering them, they won't grow. The cuts proposed in the labor H bill come at the cost of a future harvest of opportunity that you talked about earlier. They come at the cost of preschool opportunities for young children through programs like Head Start, learning opportunities for students attending Title I schools, and the futures of young people trying to better themselves through affordable training and higher education options. As you said in your remarks, this is a land of opportunity, but if these cuts are realized, they may transform us into a land of missed opportunities. That's why we have to take these cuts seriously, and I just want to thank you for continuing to fight to invest in America's education system. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jared. Thank you both. And now we just wanted to open the conversation with our guests and to the audience, and just to remind everyone, if you want to ask a question, please press *3 at any time, which will again place you in a queue to speak to one of the staff members and ask your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Thank you, Jared and Leslie. And thank you for all joining us. Again, press *3 if you're joining us via telephone to ask a question this evening. Also, if you're joining us online, you can just type your name and question right below the streaming player. And again, if you'd like to stay up to date with our office, simply press *6 to receive our e-newsletter. And we would like to take time to hear from everyone in the audience. So we're going to be asking a few quick poll questions through the evening. And if you're on the phone, you can vote by pressing the corresponding number on your keypad, and if you're online, you can vote by selecting your response right below the streaming player. The first question this evening is, we'd like to know how you prefer to be contacted by our office. Press 1 for by phone, press 2 for email, press 3 for text message, or press 4 for social media. Thank you. Your participation is really appreciated, and your calls and your questions are also really appreciated. Our first caller, Congresswoman, this evening comes from Beacon Falls. We have Denise Falzone on the line. Hi, Denise. Thanks so much for your patience. You're live with the Congresswoman.
Hi, Denise.
Hi. I'm surprised I got in. My question is, I am an early educator, and I've been an early educator in Head Start for over 20 years. I left Head Start about 2 years ago and went to work at the Jewish Community Center doing early education over in Woodbridge. My question is, what are we doing about pay for early childhood education workers?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it is the really is a significant a question, and something that is that we need to be focused on. We don't pay the people that deal with early childhood education, and what is happening is that first of all, let me just say that what is being proposed is this is the reducing of services for young children. What the bill is, what the proposed legislation will eliminate access to early childhood education for 300 children in Connecticut, and that is through the cuts to Head Start. Now, there are what we need to do is that, first of all, these people are going to be gone who are teachers, so that is one issue with regard to a pay scale, and they just won't have a job because they're going to be kicked out. But there is other legislation that addresses the needs of both child care workers and early childhood education, to look at how we might be able to deal with increased wages for folks, because the biggest issue is wages in terms of people and their cost of living today. And the other piece is that what we want to try to do is to make sure that, for instance, how can we help people who are getting credentials or degrees in this area to be able to deal with helping to pay for their student loans or debt in that case. So there are a number of areas that we're trying to be focused on. But first and foremost, let me just say to you that we've got to stop them from cutting the funding for early childhood education for Head Start.
Congresswoman, I just wanted to hop in and just talk about stuff that you have done in this area too. So all the crucial funding that you provided through the American Rescue Plan that helped to stabilize the child care system. And a lot of that money actually went to retaining child care workers and giving them bonuses. And I know that some of that funding is getting ready to expire here at the end of the month. And you've been working along with some of your other colleagues to help stabilize that funding and, prevent, it from expiring through the Child Care Stabilization Act. And so, providing efforts to extend the funding, extending opportunities that can help out the child care workforce of, today, but also tomorrow. So just wanted to, highlight the work that you have done and the work that you're continuing to do to just, help out the child care workforce. So thank you.
Thank you. I don't know, Leslie, do you want to kick in here for a moment?
Yeah. I'd just like to add that I think it's so important that you named pay for the educators of our youngest children. We really need to come together as a country and start reminding ourselves what our values are. And if our values are that we care about our youngest children, then the pay for those teachers has to reflect those values. I think it's really important that unions continue to do the work at the negotiating table so that we can raise wages. And then we have to make sure that nonprofits and the private sector have the support from the Fed so that they can keep up with the work that unions are doing at the negotiating table too. But again, we can't say that we care about our youngest children. We can't say that education is the promise of tomorrow unless we're really making sure that the conditions are in place for people to want to stay in the job. And again, Congresswoman is doing this through her advocacy, but we need to make sure that the rest of Congress is willing to engage in this conversation so that we can match our values with the budgets that we pass locally, state, and nationally.
I'll make one just final comment, and I know we want to get to a number of other questions. In this current budget year, 2023, what I did was we made investments in Head Start, and I did that as chair of the committee. Now that progress is being taken away. You should understand for this year, 2023, the budget had an 8.6% increase in Head Start. Was $11.9 billion. And what we also did was $596 million specifically for cost of living adjustment for Head Start workers.
Thank you, Congresswoman, and thanks for the questions that are coming in, and keep them coming. Simply press *3 on your telephone keypad at any time, or if you're joining us online, just type your name and question right below the streaming player so we can ask your question this evening as well. Michael Lorello is joining us online, Congresswoman. Michael's question, is there a bill that can be passed to recognize paraprofessionals as teachers so they can be subject to the same pay rates with benefits?
This is what my understanding is, that we do treat, first of all, paraprofessionals as essential as any staff member in the building, and they are deserving of a competitive wage. I'm there. I want to try to make that happen. What I will just say is that the cuts that are being proposed will make it harder for districts to be able to fairly compensate paraprofessionals. And Leslie, let me ask you if you can address that as well.
Absolutely. I want to be clear that classroom teachers, we can only do our jobs if our paraprofessionals are also working alongside of us. We do this work in partnership, and our paraprofessionals in New Haven and across the state of Connecticut absolutely deserve raises. You are working with some of our most vulnerable students with special education needs, and I think there is consensus that something must be done to increase para pay. We are seeing many of our paras leaving their chosen work in public education to go work service jobs, which are paying more. So there is clearly an issue here. And to Congresswoman's point, if these budget cuts go through, there's going to be even less money to address this disparity. And I also want to highlight that our paras in New Haven, many of them are the parents, grandparents, and family members of our students. They know our community well, and we absolutely have to come together, as we have been at AFT Connecticut, to make sure that our paras are paid a living wage, that they have access to supports for lower cost health benefits, so that they can stay in the job that they ultimately want to do. I think that there's more attention on the pipeline of giving paraprofessionals support to move them from paraprofessionals to go through the credentialing so they can get certified and become classroom teachers. And I think we definitely depend on federal funding for that, so that paraprofessionals who want to become classroom teachers are not incurring additional costs and additional debt to go through that pipeline and join us as classroom teachers. But I want to restate how necessary our paras are to the functioning of our school system. And we have a shortage of paras right now too. So this is something where we're going to need support at all levels, and we're committed to it, both at New Haven Federation and AFT Connecticut.
Thank you for that, and we thank you for participating in our first poll question. We'd like to ask you another poll question this evening as well, and that is, what issue is most important to you? Press 1 for student loan debt forgiveness. Press 2 for funding for K through 12 education. Press 3 for funding for federal work study, or press 4 for funding for early childhood education and Head Start. And again, if you're joining us online, you'll see right below the streaming player this poll question as well, and you can just type in your response right there. And again, if you have a question for the Congresswoman or either of our guests, simply press *3 on your telephone keypad, or if you're joining us online, just type your name and question right below the streaming player. Caroline Zeiss is on the phone. Hi, Caroline. You're live with the Congresswoman. Thank you.
Hi, Caroline.
Hey. Hi, Congresswoman DeLauro. I was wondering what the justification of the Republicans is for proposing this cut. I'm completely against it. Let me just put that out there. But in terms of bipartisan negotiation, how do you propose to address their attempt to cut this?
Well, I think that I don't know what their motivation is, to be Caroline, because as I said, education is the great equalizer. I think every family views that they have the responsibility to make sure that their children get the opportunities to realize their dreams and their aspirations. As I mentioned earlier, myself, my parents emphasized education as a critical way, a critical path to success. So I don't understand this view of working to eliminate public education, and that's just not. I'm making it up. I can give you just additional examples. I talked about 80% cut to Title I. They're eliminating the federal work study program. And families who are struggling to get their kids to school, and the youngster, youngsters have been able to work to help finance a post-secondary education. So if you eliminate that, you limit their potential earnings and their success. Eliminating need-based financial aid is part of what they want to do. They want to eliminate magnet schools, social and emotional learning grants, the promised neighborhoods. So it is a really very substantial the direction that they want to take this country in terms of public education. I think if you have listened carefully to a number of my colleagues and a number of the people who are really advocating for themselves to be either presidential candidates, they are for cutting or eliminating the Federal Department of Education, and they believe that responsibility, that's what I think. They don't view that public education is what the federal government should be engaged in, and that it should refer to state governments. We know that state governments do not have the wherewithal, resources, etc., to be able to make sure that all of our kids get a fair shot at an education.
Our next question comes from Naugatuck. Matthew Walsh is on the line. Hi, Matthew. Thank you for holding. You're live with the Congresswoman.
Oh, thank you for giving me the opportunity. My question was, what is the Democratic Party or the Biden administration doing, or what can we do to protect our LGBT students from these so-called parental Bill of Rights that are being passed in a lot of red states? Like even in Connecticut, which is a blue state, I have a friend who's a teacher who is concerned as an English teacher about what kind of books she can teach, how she can protect her students out of fear of backlash in her own community.
Well, we are, I might just say we really are fighting back and trying to get the bills that have been passed and the education legislation is rife with the really denying LGBTQ students opportunities for education. And so we are really fighting back and want to see these bills defeated. That's part of what is happening with this, and you're reading in the paper this government shutdown that they're taking and there's a group of Republican members who are taking us to a government shutdown. The reason why they talk about a government shutdown is that they are holding us hostage by saying that if we do not comply with their demands to make the kinds of cuts we're talking about education, to do what they want to do in these bills and what their attachment to these bills are with regard to LGBTQ, that they will shut the government down. So what we are trying to do and what we need to do is to support the civil rights offices at the Department of Education, at the Department of Justice, so that federal agencies are able to enforce the laws that protect our basic rights, including the rights of LGBTQ students. Now, Jared, let me ask you if you want to chime in on this answer of all of this.
No, I think that's exactly right about support for the Office for Civil Rights, especially at the Department of Education. That office in particular has done a lot of work to make sure that it's enforcing the laws, to making sure that students who feel like their rights have been violated can file a complaint that the department will look into to ensure that they have a voice. And so I know that this administration in particular has put out resources and toolkits, trying to support LGBTQ plus, students in school districts throughout the United States. It doesn't matter, where you live. The law is the law. And so, the federal government under the Biden administration and through the Office of Civil Rights, the Department of Education is going to enforce those laws to make sure that those rights are protected. Unfortunately, because this is a conversation about cuts, the House Republicans are proposing to cut the funding for the Office for Civil Rights and bring it down so that it, will not have the capacity to do its job, the job that's been doing well. So instead of investing in that effort, instead of investing in those students and their rights and making sure they're preserved, they're actually seeking to cut funding for the Department of Education, and that's a problem right there.
I'd like to jump in here too, Congresswoman, briefly. Just to say, this is where teachers' unions are so critically important. We are committed to making sure our schools are safe and welcoming, and we are committed to teaching truth. And I really want to encourage you to tell your friend to please connect with their union. This is something that is precisely what our role is to support our teachers, to make sure that they can have the access to materials their students need so they can feel safe in school, and to make sure that they have the protection that they can teach truth. We have an obligation, and this is something that's so very important to AFT Connecticut, and I know to CEA. There's work being done on a teacher's Bill of Rights precisely for this reason, that we can't live in fear of making sure that our students have access to materials and spaces that ensure that they, particularly our LGBTQ students, are safe when they go to school every day.
Thank you, Leslie and Jared and Congresswoman. And we have so many great questions coming in this evening, both online and on the phone. And again, if you have a question you'd like to ask, if you're joining us via telephone, press *3. And if you're joining us online, just type your name and question right below the streaming player. We have from Orange, we have Geraldine Foley on the line. Hi, Geraldine. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Geraldine. Hello?
Hi, Geraldine. Are you still there? Well, let me just touch on her question, Congresswoman. Student loan payments. Geraldine's concerned with Biden's repayment of student loans. Geraldine says, I paid my children so they're debt-free, work and save so there is no debt, that it's sending the wrong message, that it's unjust to all Americans. What about considering forgiving interest but not debt?
Mm-hmm. Well, let me just say, look, if you work hard and pursue a post-secondary degree in an effort to increase your skills, to be able to get a good job, if there is a way to alleviate, and I understand where Geraldine is coming from, but we're looking at today and what is happening today with the issue of student debt, so that if we can alleviate or assist with the burden of debt that people may or may not be able to afford, I think that is a good thing for us to be doing. Maybe we should have been doing it all along, but I think we're looking today at how significant the issue is of student debt. And to be able to provide some relief, I think is advantageous to foster education and the ability to be able to succeed. The Democrats and President believe that many students have had this overburdened. They support targeted debt relief programs for those who are in need. This is about, yes, debt cancellation. They're about some income-driven repayment programs. The Republicans want to block more of some of these common sense efforts. If there is a way to help families today to assist their kids getting to school and to college, why shouldn't we go down that road? And it may be unfortunate that it wasn't done in the past. Look, my folks, took out loans to get me to school, but certainly my parents would have welcomed the idea to have some assistance in this area. Jared, let me ask you to add some more to this effort.
Yeah, sure. And I love stories like the one we heard from Geraldine, and I wish that there were more Geraldine stories out there. But when we have a system that works for some people and not for others, that system's still broken. And that's what 40 million or 40 million plus borrowers are experiencing right now when it comes to their student loans. These are people who want to be able to pay off their loans, but through no fault of their own, they've played by the rules. But through whether it be bad advice from student loan servicers or others who've misled them, they haven't been able to. And so I think providing recognizing that and providing some relief is certainly something that's needed. You talked, Congresswoman, about the common sense solutions that we see those across the aisle opposing, and that's part of the problem too. Is that we're seeing in this labor aid bill that they're cutting work study, they're cutting federal supplemental educational opportunity grants or FSEOG, and so they're cutting the aid that future generations used to be able to rely on to go to college. That's just going to amount to more debt. They're trying to get rid of the SAVE plan as well through the congressional review process or through procedural mechanisms to try to get rid of all the benefits that we would provide to borrowers and to their families outside of debt relief. And so that just underscores the issue of relief and the need for relief even more.
Well, I just want to say they're eliminating need-based financial aid. This has been a staple in the federal education. We tell people, get an education. And make the promise that they're going to live the American dream through education. But debt is keeping people from home ownership, from putting food on the table, and really creating enormous pressure on families. Let me just take a second to ask, Leslie, if you could just briefly say something about teachers and debt.
Absolutely. Thank you, Congresswoman. The debt relief that some of our teachers have been able to achieve through the loan forgiveness has been enabled them to stay in the career, right? We might not get some of the biggest raises that keep up with inflation, but when we can get that debt relief, we are able to commit to districts like New Haven and stay in the work. So I think we have to think globally about this as far as like we're making progress, right? Certainly it should have been around years ago. It's happening now for some people, and for the people that it's happening for, they are more likely to stay in the professions where we really need them, these public service professions like healthcare, like education. So I think we want to see the overall impact, not just on someone's direct pocketbook, but on how it's helping them to give back to their communities and benefit our students and our families.
That's great. A good point. Thank you.
Congresswoman, we have Ryan who joined us online, and Ryan's not alone. Ryan is solidly against the action from the Republicans, and furthermore states that even the amount of funding we have now for schools and teachers is clearly not enough. And Ryan and several other constituents joining us online are all asking the same question. What can be done? What can they do to help stop the education cuts?
Well, I love it, Ryan, and all of you together. This is really critically important. We need your help. I need your help. And we need your voices loud and clear. I think, people in our own community do have no idea of the scale of these cuts and what it means for the economic security of families and the educational opportunities for families. And we need you to speak up. Now, you've got, there's the Connecticut delegation to a person is opposed to these cuts. But you have a very vibrant, robust network of people all over the country. And the word needs to get out of what the intentions are, overwhelming intentions of making these massive, massive cuts. And that if they don't get these cuts, they will shut the government down. So I ask you to do an op-ed, do a press conference, you have standing. You can stand up and let people know that this is happening and we need your voice. Let me just tell you something about the Congress. The Congress is an institution that responds to external pressure. You are the external pressure. Your voices need to be heard loud and clear, and that is with parents, with teachers, with PTA groups, with educational organizations, the advocacy organizations. You need to be up on your feet, loud and clear. And I just say this because what I've witnessed in the hearings and with these cuts is that this is a move to eliminate public education, which I said at the outset, which undermines the values of the United States of America. And this would once again put education only in the purview of the wealthiest people in this country. It was there years and years ago. We worked very hard to make what Horace Mann say, that education is the great equalizer. That's how I need your help. I need you to be on your feet. And I thank you for asking that question.
Before we get to our next question this evening, we'd like to pose one final poll question for you this evening. And again, we really appreciate your participation. Your opinions are important. The question is, how concerned are you about House Republicans' cuts to education programs? Press 1 for very concerned. Press 2 for concerned. Press 3 for somewhat concerned, and press 4 for not concerned. And again, if you're joining us online, you'll see that poll question right below the streaming player, and you can just enter your answer right there. And again, if you have a question you'd like to ask before this event is over this evening, press *3 on your telephone keypad, or you can simply type it right below the streaming player if you're joining us online. Next from East Haven, we have Jonathan Baird on the line. Hi, Jonathan. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Jonathan.
Hi, good evening. Hi, Rosa. How are you, dear?
I'm well. I hope you're well.
Yes, I'm well. I know you don't remember me, but I remember you vividly, and your mom.
Oh, thank you.
So I love you both.
Thank you.
My concern, truly, when I was growing up in New Haven, at Worthington Hooker School, it was like K through 12 was a guarantee, and it did get stronger with more avenues and assistance to a lot of people. What I'm really afraid of, and when you said about this handful of Republicans that are going to shut us down, why don't we? I know this is not the approach people want to hear, but I'm sick of being bullied. I mean that sincerely. Why don't we shut, or does this even make sense? That's what I should ask you. So let them shut it down, because I think in a very short period of time, in my opinion, I think they would cave. What do you think?
Well, let me just say, first of all, thank you, so much, and thank you for, mentioning my mom. I would tell you, my mother worked in the old sweatshops in the city of New Haven, and she and my dad killed themselves so that I could have the best of an education, because that was the ticket to success. And so as I say, I thank you for mentioning her. Now, I don't want to shut the government down. Democrats and Republicans have got to come together in order to be able to pass the bills. We can compromise. We can come to, you don't get everything that you want in a negotiation, and Leslie will tell you that, but you can talk about what the priorities are, what you need to do, what we can't do, etc., and try to move forward. So that I don't want to shut the government down. That will be very, very detrimental to people and their families. And people will lose their jobs. People will be furloughed. There will be delay in payments for whether or not it's veterans or others. It is really a very, very dangerous tool that, and that's why what they're doing is playing a dangerous game here. So I don't want to do that. What I want to do is to bring the pressure that is necessary to say we can't go down these roads. Let's get to a place where we can sit down. Let's negotiate. I won't get everything that I want. You won't get everything that you want, but we will do what's in the best interest of the country and what's the best interest of the people of this country. That is the challenge. And that's what I will do. And that's what I'm going to be working at in the next 2 weeks, because we only have until September 30th. We will either have what they call a continuing resolution to maintain the current levels of funding, or this government will shut down. So that's what my goal will be over the next 2 weeks, is to keep the government open and to come to a path forward.
Congresswoman, our next question comes from Alan Vincent, who's joining us online during this town hall this evening. And Alan's statement is as follows: loans and tuition costs are beyond predatory, and it's only getting worse. What proposals can be put in place to put more oversight into tuition costs, increases, and caps on loan interest rates and repayment terms?
Well, there is actually, in terms of some of the efforts in terms of repayment, there are quite honestly there's something, and Jared, you may be able to speak to this in terms of the SAVE plan and what's out there. It's an income-driven repayment plan, and it's based on borrower's income and family size, not on the loan balance. But it really, they're trying to build into that, what you can do so that somebody is not ripping off the system. But it would cut payments on undergraduate loans in half. The loans will have payments reduced from 10% to 5% of discretionary income. And they will have an opportunity to deal with lower rates, but also there will be built in the way in which one can deal with oversight of whose loans are getting looked at, or what the repayment schedule is, and what a person's income is, so they're not gaming the system. One of the other things that we have to do is we've got what are predatory for-profit colleges. They need to be held accountable. They are ripping people off. I had a hearing on just this very, very issue before the committee, and just unbelievable. They sell folks, because a lot of there's older people involved here. They sell them a bill of goods about what kind of degree they're going to get, how successful they're going to be. So many of these for-profit colleges, they have shut down, leaving folks. Actually, we have an incident in Connecticut with Stone College, who have left people high and dry and with a lot of debt. So the for-profits have to be held accountable. We have legislation, the borrower defense legislation, gainful employment legislation. We have these online program management companies that need to be curtailed so that they don't saddle students with debt and a useless degree. Jared, I'm going to ask you to jump in here and speak about where we are on gainful employment and borrower defense.
Sure, and you said it all. You hit the nail right on the head. So as far as gainful employment, the administration is underway with a new rule to hold schools accountable, to make sure that anyone who enters into one of these programs is leaving with the education that they were promised, and that they're able to earn a life-sustaining wage So if you're going to college, that you are better off from going to college, going to that program, and that you're earning more than a high school graduate, or potentially even someone who's a college graduate if you're going to graduate school. So we should really see that rule any day now to hold for-profit colleges accountable. There's still some challenges with the implementation of the borrower defense rule, but that is another rule that in operation would have really provided an avenue for people who are misrepresented or who are defrauded by their institutions of higher education, their colleges and universities, and would have provided a mechanism for the federal government to collect money from those fraudulent institutions to protect taxpayers. But you're right. The answer here is really to hold colleges accountable. And you talked about online program management companies, online education, and really looking at the true cost of college, hidden fees, but also ensuring that the people who are part of the system are actually working towards preserving educational opportunity or providing those educational opportunities and economic opportunities for students. So that's really vital and important. So I just wanted to echo everything that you said so clearly. Thank you.
I want to mention, because I did in my comments, Stone Academy in our community was a nursing program. Just have ripped people off. They shut down, and these folks are now holding the bag. And I know it's being looked at and seen. And we've offered, my office has offered assistance, to the state about, dealing with this and what is it that we might be able to do to hold these folks harmless from what this institution did. Okay?
I just want to take this moment to remind and to thank the thousands that have joined us this evening for this interactive telephone town hall. This is obviously a topic that's important to so many people. And if you'd like to stay up to date on what is going on with Congresswoman DeLauro's office, you can press *6 right now and sign up for the e-newsletter. We'll collect your email address and make sure that you get all the latest information about what is happening. And we appreciate all the calls that are coming in this evening, like this one from New Haven. Shaka Felder is on the line. Hi, Ms. Felder. Thanks for holding.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
No problem.
Okay, great. Thank you, Congresswoman DeLauro. I really appreciate being looped into this call. I run a statewide college access organization called Higher Heights. And our mission here, and we're homegrown, we're based in New Haven, but we support all of the Title I schools and the districts that you're mentioning right now who's going to be impacted by this. Our work, we work with 1,000 high school students every single year to help them go through the entire college application process. I am completely disheartened that our work that we've been doing here in Connecticut for the past 20 years is now going to be impacted drastically by our students not being able to receive federal work study, not being able to receive SEOG funds. The students that we represent are predominantly low-income, first-gen students. So my question to you is, because, yes, we have access to so many families, I really need to know what we can do to lift our voices, because our students directly, they're going to be impacted by this. And we send thousands of kids off to college every single year. Some of them stay here in the state. They go to 2-year schools, 4-year schools. Some students go out of state. I need to know what I need to do, because this is drastic and it's going to impact our kids.
One of the things I think you can do is, and the information is out there. If the Title I schools get an 80% cut, okay, and you're dealing with all of the Title I schools, what you need to do is, and this is back of an envelope, is, and what that 80% cut means is over 220,000 teachers. 220,000 teachers will be jettisoned. Now, if you then look at your Title I schools and you take a look at what they're getting and you cut that by 80%, you are then going to be able to tell them how many teachers that they are going to lose. That information needs to get out. That information needs to go to the families, to all of the education organizations. It's got to be out there in a very, very public way of what just this one cut, this 80% cut will do. Now, and then you talked about what happens with the work-study program, and that is how many kids in ours are going to be affected by that. That's the kind of that you've got to get out and around to your folks to make a difference. We can get you information about what the scope and the size of the cuts are, and then you can take a look at it. I know some of my colleagues are doing this, is extrapolate that to your own set of circumstances and really, for instance, Connecticut will lose 1,900 teachers, okay? That's the kind of data that's got to go out to these schools and to parents and families, et cetera, to know what the heck is out there. What I want to do is to ask Leslie, what can folks get involved in locally, Leslie, to help you out in this effort?
Thank you, Congresswoman. Hi, Dr. Felder. I know firsthand the impact of Higher Heights and their work. They worked and continue to work with students in New Haven and help us make sure that students have access to the support and planning that they need for post-secondary life. So first, I just want to highlight Dr. Felder's ongoing work and commitment to New Haven youth. And I think you raise a really good question. Let's get the tools to the 17, 18, 19-year-olds and let them start doing some of this organizing themselves. I think our young people hold tremendous power, and I think when they are able to unleash it, they are a voting bloc that has not kind of been tapped into yet, and let's make sure that they have the tools they need so that they can let their voices be heard. Rosa told us we need to hold a press conference. Maybe we need to do a joint press conference, youth from Higher Heights and New Haven Federation, so that we can say this is unacceptable. It impacts students when they're students in K-12, and it impacts students when they graduate and try to fulfill their dreams. But I think the more that we do some of this youth organizing, and we're committed to it at NHFT, so that our young people have the tools to raise the awareness, to hold our leaders accountable beyond our Congresswoman who's doing this work, and make sure that they're registered to vote, that they know how to write an op-ed, that they know how to call their elected officials at all levels of government. But let's connect beyond this call so that we can figure out ways to really empower youth to hold our elected officials accountable. And I look forward to it because I know how much you impacted the lives of the seniors that I taught when I was at Metropolitan.
Thank you. And, I would just say it's 10,000 students in Connecticut who take advantage of the federal work-study program. You got 21,000, almost 22,000 students who, take need-based financial aid if you eliminate the supplemental education opportunity grants. I mentioned the 1,900 teachers. If you eliminate services for English learners, almost 46,000 English learners through the elimination of the English language acquisition, the Title III program. So, and right, we organizing at the local level is where this is going to be able to be turned around. Hello? Hello? Tim?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, there's Earl. Hi, Earl. There you are. Go right ahead.
Hello. My comment first and question is that for decades, the Republicans have been manufacturing a network under the guise of the Christian religious right that has cultivated very wealthy people, and they've set in place judges, legislators, you name it, from the dog catcher to the mayors, that are attacking the basic principles of this country. This is something that's been going on for decades, and they now have a very well-cultivated machine and a template that they are executing. The Democrats seem to be just standing by idly while all this is going down. The messaging is terrible in spite of all the ammunition that the Republicans are providing them with. The Democrats also don't seem to be cultivating young people to become part of the process like the Republicans. My question is, when are they going to start, and what are they doing to be able to go toe-to-toe with the Republicans instead of sitting by idly while this whole thing in a very bombastic way falls apart?
First of all, thank you. Thank you for calling, and thank you for the question. And look, I can hear the frustration in your voice, and I appreciate that. But I want you to know that Democrats are not standing by idly. I have been, and others, we've been all over the country talking about what, in fact, is going on. And this is the second opportunity I have had where I've, in a public way, to talk about the education cuts. We are meeting with all of the education advocacy groups from around the country, and the others in education or worker training. We're not talking about that tonight, but all the worker training programs have been cut as well. Adult education, youth education. But we have been organizing and getting the word out around the country. So yes, I understand your frustration. We are not standing idly by. It's one of the reasons why I'm on the phone tonight with all of you and listening to you. And you've heard my message. We can't do it without you standing up and others standing up and saying no. We're not taking this country down this road. We're not going to eliminate opportunity for young people in this country. And look, could we, organizing young people, we're trying to do that through various measures. Is it enough? Maybe not, which we can work harder at doing. But we are not standing idly by. I want you to know that. And I also, as I said, understand your frustration at these efforts, and we will work as hard as we can. And you can help us with a message, getting to your local press, getting to your local media, and talking about what's happening. We can become allies and partners in fighting back on these issues.
Congresswoman, we have time for one more question, so let's get to it this evening. Rebecca Polmini from Brantford. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us tonight. You're live with the Congresswoman.
Hi there.
Hi, Rebecca.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm a local science teacher, and I see all the good work that is going on in my school, as well as I'm assuming going on in many different schools. What can we as a community do to make it that the voters and the constituents understand the value of public education for all?
Well, it's about the success of public education. Somebody was on earlier about their kids were in Worthington Hooker. My kids went to Worthington Hooker School and to Wilbur Cross. 80 to 90%, and Leslie, you probably have a better number, it's 90%, I believe, of our kids are in public education. Our job is to strengthen it and not to cut the public investment in education. But you're on the ground, and I want to be on the ground with you. And I'll talk to anyone, any group, etc. But people need to know. We can provide you with all of the information, chapter and verse, of what is going on. And I've got it, it's all listed out in education, etc. And that you need to engage in your community. You need to pull people together. You need to get to your local organizations and say, this is what's happened. What are we going to do about it? We cannot remain silent, and especially in the area of science. And these people don't believe in science, many of them, and so forth. So we have to be partners and in working this through. That's how we can. But you got to tell the success stories of public education. There are so many people who want to decry public education, and I'm going to ask quickly for Jared and Leslie to say something about the success of public education. I listen to naysayers all the time and saying that our public schools are failing. They are not failing, but we need to do more by way of public investment in our schools. But the story needs to be told. Quickly, Leslie and Jared, about public education.
Thank you, Rosa, for saying the truth about public schools, that we do so much to support our communities. We are not failing. The circumstances outside of school are sometimes failing our students and their families, but schools are doing a tremendous amount with not enough resources. And again, I think you said it, Rosa, we got to organize. We got to organize our students, our families, our communities to join together and remind everyone that public education is the foundation of our democracy, without which we are sunk. And we must lead with the solutions, that we know how to address the solutions to make our students stronger readers, to support their mental health, to give them hands-on learning opportunities, and to make sure that our schools are safe, welcoming, and well-maintained. When we do that, we can fulfill that promise. So I love the organizing piece, and I love the solutions. We are meeting students from all over the world in our New Haven public schools. They come here, we welcome them, and we give them the tools that they need, but we need federal government support to do it. Go ahead, Jared.
Jared.
Thank you. No, public education touches the lives of nearly every American, and so making sure we do tell those success stories, not just the negative, and not just feeding into conservative talking points, but that we talk about the opportunities that are provided through our educational system, at the early childhood level, at the K-12 level, and the higher education level as well, to make sure we're preserving that promise of the American education system and how that's been fulfilled through your work as a science teacher and the work of so many others. And, schools are a sit within communities, and they serve not only the students, but their families, broader communities. And so we want to make sure we tell those stories. And so as part of the messaging around pushing back against these cuts, I think it's making sure that we preserve the legacy and the opportunity that is provided through the American education system. Thank you.
And I would just say that we are failing our kids if we do not invest in them. And that is especially true with low-income students. So, anyway, so I guess we're going to wrap up, Tim.
Yes, Congresswoman, and unfortunately that is all the time we have for questions, and we really appreciate the opportunity to speak directly with all your constituents and answer your questions. But if we were not able to get to your specific question this evening, a couple of things you can do. Stay on the line after this event ends and leave a voicemail for the Congresswoman or her staff, or you can contact us through our website, deloro.house.gov. Now, we will host more of these events in the future to keep you informed on what we're working on and other important updates. And Congresswoman DeLauro, I'd just like to tell you it's been a pleasure hosting this for you this evening. It's clear and undeniable your passion for this particular subject, and thanks for having us.
Can I just wrap up by saying, with your poll, what I understand is that 78% of people have said that they're very concerned about the education cuts. 9% are concerned. 87% have real concern for these cuts. So I once again say to people, let your voices be heard. Make no mistake. This is about decimating public education. That is what's being fostered. And if you don't believe me, listen to the words of the people who are running on the Republican ticket for president. Eliminate the Department of Education. The amendment I spoke to you about early in my opening remarks by Congressman Tom Massey said we will eliminate federal funding for K through 12 education. And that would be started in that it was 161 Republicans voted for that. The Heritage Foundation has come out saying that we should be done with the Department of Education. The Office of Management and Budget Director under President Trump has called for the elimination of the Department of Education. All this, and Betsy DeVos, who was a Secretary of Education, all calling for the end. And this is public education. It is where our kids live and breathe, and it's going to be up to us to make our voices heard and stop them from doing this. We can do it. I know we can. Thank you for participating tonight.
Thank you to everyone's participation this evening. Have a great rest of your night. Good night.